Hello guys, welcome to another edition of our Power Platform series. This is going to be the fourth part of this video, so if you have not seen parts 1 to 3, I recommend you go through them. And so we've been talking about how to build a leave request application with Power Platform using Power Apps, Power Automate, SharePoint lists. And so far we've been able to achieve a few things. We've been able to create our app from the new request screen to a screen where you can create your requests. We have the request history screen, we have the success screen at the moment, and in our last video we were able to go through how to create a Power Automate flow, which helps the manager to approve their requests. So today, so what happens if you haven't watched that video? You need to watch that to see what happens. The manager is able to approve from their email. Now what happens in this video is we need to so there are scenarios where you have the manager approving from the application, or whichever approver has to approve from the application itself and not from the email. So how do we achieve that? So that's what we are going to be going through today. So to start that, we'll start by doing a bit of redesign to these screens. So but for the sake of time, I'll just quickly do a redesign and you'll see that in the next couple of minutes. But if you like to see how the redesign was done, I can take a different video on that, so you can let me know in the comments. So see you soon. So yes, welcome back. As you can see, there has been a bit of redesign on the application, and I believe it looks much better now. I've done a redesign of the different screens that we have. I'll just quickly do a walkthrough of a couple of things that has changed. So I changed the image here to this, added this to leave request, added leave request here. Of course we have this button here, but I changed this to a modern theme. So to do that, you can go to the settings and enable this modern control and themes, and what happens is I was able to go to the themes here and then selected. You can select any of these, or you can as well add your own custom theme and put in the name of the theme and all of the configurations here. So this is what we have now. So all of that takes effect with the colors changing here. If you go ahead to the request form screen as well, we can see that the color has also changed, and we have so a few things that has changed there as well is the formatting of the date from the month, date, year to date, month, year. So we can do that by going to the language property and using this. So there are different other ones depending on the format you want to use. In my own case, it's date, month, year, so I applied that to start date and end date. Also, if we go to the request history screen, this is where most of the changes has happened. What we had initially was much different from this, so we can see that this looks much nicer than what we had initially. So all of this, like I mentioned earlier, I can do a different video on how to redesign this and make it look this way. So right now we have this this is still our gallery. We have the gallery, we have the header for the table here, we have a search button where we can search by the title here. We have the a drop down where we can filter by different statuses. So we have pending, manager, approval, and all of that. We also have the leaf type as well. We can filter by the different leaf types that we have, right? So those are the different things that has changed. So just to show you a bit of that as well, what I've done here is to insert a container. So you would see that this kind of looks, it has this sort of border around it, or the table now. So what happened here is we have a container here. We inserted our gallery inside a container, and we also have the label, which is the header here, where we have the different values for the headers. And on the gallery itself, we have this formula, which is where we are filtering our. So initially we just had the filter, we just had the leave request. So now we are having this filter, which is filter leave requests. We have the by the request email, where the request email is the myprofile.mail. So what we are trying to do with this part is we are trying to tell it to only return requests that are submitted by me. So it only filters by anywhere I have the requester email as my email, then it shows the records, so I don't get to see other people's records. And then this place is where we are searching with this title. So it's saying where the title starts with the text inputs canvas 1. So that's this, as you can see the name. So you can also make a habit of also renaming your controls to easily understand what each control means, so you can easily identify them by name. In my own case, because of time, I just left it this way. Also, we have the drop downs as well, which is part of the formula here. So we are also filtering by the status value, which is the combo box canvas 1, which is for the one for our status, and we have another one for the leaf type as well. So this is saying that I should check where the status value is, whatever I've selected in that combo box, or when the combo box is blank. So whenever the combo box is blank, what it does is it returns all the records, all the records with the different statuses. So in this other one as well, the leaf type as well, just exactly the same. This is combo box canvas 1 and _1, which is the second one for the leaf type. So this is also filtering by whenever I select the specific leaf type, it returns all records with that leaf type, and when none is selected, which is when it's blank, it returns all of the various leaf types. So that's basically what we've done here. Now we need to create a similar screen for the approver. So what we need to do here is to we'll just duplicate this screen, and let's see what happens. Okay, the screen has been duplicated now, and we have it as request history screen _1. So we can rename this to whatever we want. So we want to use this for the line manager. So we can say manager requests screen. So now that we have this as well, what needs to change here is we need to change what sort of requests are being displayed. So this is where the manager comes into. So if you go back to the third part of this video, you see that we have the manager getting an email with a screen to approve their different requests. In this case, what we need to have is we need a screen where the manager can come into and see the list of all requests submitted to them, and they can select any of them and then take the necessary action. So to do that, if you remember, we have just duplicated the screen, so it's just a replica of the previous screen, which shows the requests submitted by the requester, which is whoever is logged in. Now what we need to change here is, rather than saying where the requester email is this, we need to change this to where the manager.email is this. So which means all requests submitted where I am the manager. So if I go back here, we'll see that for all of my requests that I have at the moment, I have myself as the manager, which is why I'm seeing this. So if I have a different request that I have submitted to a different manager, that would not show up here. Actually, I can quickly do that. So I'll just submit a request to a different person and add it, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've just submitted a new request with selecting somebody else as my manager, and so I can see that as part of my request here. But if I go to the manager request screen, I'll see that I can't find that because I'm no longer the manager for that particular request. And we can as well just rename this to manager request, or whatever header you decide to give it. You can put an S there. So we can do the same here as well. Okay, so now that we have that, the next thing is we need to be able to preview. So how does the manager proceed to view more details about this request? I mean, in some cases you may have lots of columns that all may not be able to fit into your gallery, so the approver or the user must be able to select that particular request and view more information about it. So what we'll do here is to add an additional functionality to this button. So how do we do that? So what we want to do is to say we want to create a variable which would hold this particular record that we are selecting, and then we pass the value of that variable into this particular form, such that even though it's currently a new form that we use to submit a new request at this point, we can also reuse this same form to view existing records. So how do we do that? When I come to this new this arrow, I can set a variable by saying this. So I'll put the formula here. So we have this saying set var selected record this item. So we are setting this variable, it's a global variable, to this item, which is the current item in the gallery, and then navigates to this particular screen. So if we do that, if we click on the button, what it does is it sets that variable and takes us to the screen. However, nothing has changed yet. So for that to happen, what we need to do is we need to also change the item property of this record to the var selected record, right? So one other thing we missed out on this is to change the mode of the form. So in addition to what we already have here, we can say view form, then the name of the form, which is let's check it here. So it's form 1. Of course, you can also rename the forms to easily identify them. Form 1, and let's do this. So what this does is it changes the mode of the form from a new form to a view form. We also have edit form if you need to edit the form. So let's play this again and click on this. So now we can see that it's a view form. I can no longer make edits on the form. It's no longer like a new form, but I can see the record that I selected. If I go back and I select a different one, I'd also be able to view the details of that. So I can see all of the details of that particular record that I submitted. I can see the manager that I selected here. So that's how we are able to view the record. There are still additional things to do. As you can see that when I come here, I'm able to still see the submit button. So we may want to also disable it or hide the submit button whenever the form mode is not new. So I can go to the visible property of this particular form. So instead of just making it visible all the time, I want it to only be visible when the mode of the current form, like form 1. So form 1.mode, let me remove the spaces. So form 1.mode is equal to form mode dot new. So which means this will only show whenever the form mode here is new. So whenever it's view or any other mode or edit, then this no longer shows up. Then I can to also make that change on the new request as well. So because if I click on this new request, it still remains in view mode. So we need to also always reset the mode back to whatever we want from the buttons. So I can also change it back to new form whenever I'm coming from this screen. I'll just say new form 1. So that would help reset the form mode to new form. So if I go here again and I click on new request, then that should show a new form, so which is fine, and I can see that the submit button also shows up at this point. Okay, so now we go to the manager screen. So this is where we have most of the work to do. We can as well just copy the same set of formula we have on the request history screen, which is for the requestor. We can just copy whatever we have here. I mean, basically we are doing the same thing, showing the details of the requests for the manager. So I can go here and put the same thing in the onSelect property of this icon. Of course, you can also use a button rather than the icon and say maybe view or something. Okay, now that we have this, if I come from the manager's request screen as well, I'll see that basically I'll be able to see the same information. So let's go back to the manager request screen. So the additional thing we need to then do is not going to be on this screen. Mostly is going to be on the request form screen. So what we want to do is, whenever the manager is trying to approve, the manager should have the option to approve and reject. If you recall from the third part of the video, we have the approve and reject and the comment button, which comes directly in your email. But in this case, the manager is approving from the app. So in that case, we need to have the approve and reject button here as well. So to do that, we are going to insert buttons. So we can have a button. So we have the button here to say approve, reject, and we can just rename them approve. Okay, so we have the approve and reject button now. Yeah, so I've inserted this and changed the color and all that. And so now these buttons should only show when. So we need to put a condition on when they should, just like we did for the submit button, right? So we want to say when the form mode, which is form 1 dot mode okay, here is the full formula. So we have form 1 dot mode is equals to form mode dot view, which means the form mode has to be in a view mode. The very selected and this very selected record dot manager dot email equal to my profile dot mail, which means the manager of this selected record, remember we are setting the variable from our previous screen, has to be the same person that is logged in from the which is the my profile dot mail. The mail has to match, and then the final check is that, and the status value, we are getting that from the variable selected record as well. We are saying where the status value is pending manager approval, because you should only be able to approve when the status is pending manager approval. Once the status changes from pending manager to approval to manager approval, manager rejected, it means an action has been taken already. So this button should no longer be visible at that point. So this is why we have this set of condition when the buttons should be visible. So it's same for both approve and reject. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to say, okay, whenever you click on the approve or reject button, we want a modal to sort of pop up showing like a comment box where you can click on type in your comments and select OK. So that's then updates the status. Rather than updating the status from the Power Automate, now we are going to update the status right from the app. So which will update it from pending manager approval to manager approved or manager rejected. So let's see how we'll do that. Okay guys, so in order not to bore you, I've done a few things which I would quickly go through now. So that's just to help us save some time. So on the approve button, I've added this formula which is update context. So update context, what it does is it helps you create a variable, a local variable, which is usable on that particular screen. For the global variable which we did initially, which using set, that's a global variable which can be passed across screens. But update context is usually used when you are using a variable that is just going to be used within that screen. So what we have done is to create two variables here, which is show modal. So this show modal is, we are setting it to true. It will help us set to true and false, where we can show a particular modal, or decide to set it to false when we don't want the modal to show. We'll see that in action very soon. Also, we have the manager action, which is what the action the manager took, which is manager approved. So essentially, you will notice that this is the exact status that we have on this column, right? Manager approved. And for the reject as well, we have the same thing. So the only difference is that this is manager rejected, and we'll see why we have that in just a bit. So when you click on approve button, what happens here is it changes this show modal to true. However, we've added a container here. So what the container does is it has a couple of elements in it. We have we inserted a button at the back here, change the color to white just to give a feel of a modal, right? And set the display mode to view and all of that. Removed the text as well, so that gave us that. Then we have the text input, which is the classic text input that would where we would insert our comment. Also, we have these two buttons here, which is the OK button and the cancel button. So what the OK button or the cancel button first, what it does is it just sets the modal, the same variable back to false, and it resets the text input. So why we are resetting the text input is so that it doesn't keep whatever comment you have inserted here. So whatever you have typed in here, if we test that now, it would want to click on cancel, it cancels whatever is there and it brings you a new text field. And same thing as well for the close icon at the top. So they essentially does the same thing. So now we have the close, we have the cancel button. Now back to the OK button. So what the OK button does is this is where most of the actions are happening. So we have the patch function where we are patching the leave request. The very selected record is the record which we are trying to update, and we have already set that from our previous screen, so we can just reuse that here. Then the values we want to update on the column. So we want to update the status, we want to update the manager comments and the manager action time. So for the status, remember we already updated a variable on the approve button. If I go back here, so which is manager approved. So what we are just doing here is we are updating our OK button to that manager approved, which is that variable we already set, and which means if you are also selecting reject, it also updates it to manager rejected. And for the comments, we are also updating the manager comments to whatever inputs you have in your in this text box at the top here, where you have the enter comment. Then manager action time is updating it to now, which is the current time that you are actioning that. Then after that, we are setting this back to false. So false means hide this modal. Then it shows notify. So this notify kind of shows a ribbon at the top, a notification bar at the top where you have the this message, and then you have the success, which is the color, which kind of depicts what color it should display as, and then the 2000 is in milliseconds, so which means this should display for 2 seconds, and then it goes off. You can keep it for longer if you want. And this is also resets the inputs this back to the default blank one, and then back means then just take us back to the screen we are coming from. So that's essentially what's we've done here. So we can just go ahead and test this now, and let's see what happens. So in the meantime, I'll just close this and go back to my manager request screen and see. So I currently have this sick leave for February, and I'll just select this. Once I select it, it takes me back here, and then have the option to view all of the details. So I can click on the approve and then put in all of my comments and say all fine and say OK. So once I say OK, So you can see at the top it's trying to patch that, so which has patched down, and it has updated the status from pending manager to manager approved. So if I come back here now and I click on it, you can see that I can no longer see the approve and reject button because the status has changed from pending manager approval to manager approved. Also, the part I missed out as well is the manager comment. So for the manager comment, I also added the data card for this on the form. So what I also did was to update the visible property to only be visible when the form mode is view. So that means this should only show when the form mode is view. So if I'm trying to create a new one, so this is just for the manager or the requestor to see the comments that the manager made, subsequently. So in the case where it's a new request, this doesn't show up. If I click on new request now, then the manager comment field shouldn't show up at this point, as you can see. So it only shows up when the form mode is in the view mode, which means I'm viewing an existing one. So yeah, I think that's about it for the app. Just in a few minutes, I'll also walk us through the Power Automate flow. So now the Power Automate flow is going to change a bit from what we initially had. So we'll see what changes. I mean, it's just a slight change. Remember, we had the action to approve from our email in the last episode. So now we need to just tweak that a bit. So let's go to our Power Automate now and see what needs to change. So because I said earlier that what is changing is not quite much, so what we'll do is we'll just save this existing one as a copy, and let me quickly do that. Okay, so as we can see now, I've duplicated my flow. So we have the request approval flow, which is the one we created earlier, and this is the new one, which is the in-app flow. So which means this is the one where we are approving in-app. And coming back here, so I mean the trigger is still the same, still triggers by this. The switch statement still remains. So the only thing that is going to change essentially here is the pending manager approval section. So which means when it's pending manager approval, what should happen, right? So for that, we'll just let's just delete this, because essentially we are not going to, we are already updating, taking out all of this action from our app, which is updating it to either manager approved or manager rejected. So these are not going to be needed anymore. So we'll just delete these two actions. So delete this, and then we'll delete this as well. So now that we have deleted this, we'll add a different one, which is the Office 365 Outlook email connector. So we have that here. So similar to the one we did earlier, we'll just say send an email. So send an email. So because we want the managers to still receive some form of notification to know that there is a request pending his or her approval. So here we'll still put in the name of the email of the manager. So we'll say manager email, as well as the leave request approval for requester display name. And we can as well put similar contents. Just say hi manager display name, and then just say you have a new request. Okay, so we have the full message here. So we said you have a new request and all of that, and then we have click here to approve. So what we want this to do is whenever I say click here, this should take me to my app, and we can come to the app details to get the web link, and then I'll just copy this, and I'll change this to a link and put the link targets as that. So whenever I click on this, or the manager clicks on this, it should take him or her to the approval, to the app. So once that is done, then once he approves, this essentially should remain the same. Once he has approved, the status changes to manager approved, and then he gets this email. If it rejects as well, then the user gets this email. So we can just save this, and then we'll go back to our app to test and see how this works at the moment. So while we have done that, I've also added additional button here, which is for my approvals, which takes us to the approval screen. So I'll just publish my app as well. Okay, our app has been published now, so we are playing this outside of the studio, and I'll just create a new request again to see submit to a different person. So let's say new leave. Yeah, select the department, select the leave type, and the start date and end date. So select the manager, and you could also attach a document as well, then submit. So now this has been submitted. I have this, so if I go to my requests, I should be able to see this on my dashboard, so I can see the new leave that I just submitted. I can come here to view the details, and I can see all the details. As you can see, I can't see the manager, the approve and reject button, because I am not the manager at the moment. So I'll just switch to the account to which this was submitted, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, now I've switched to the different accounts that I selected as the manager, and you can see that I've received this email saying you have a pending request pending your approval, and I can click here. So when I click here, I expect this to take me to the application, and once the application is opened, I can go to my approvals, and once I go to my approvals, I should see that particular approval, so that I can see that I have a new leave, and then I can go here, select the specific approval, the specific request, and I can click on approve or reject, or whichever one I decide to do. I can actually decide to reject this. So one other thing I've added, which I'll maybe show in a bit, is whenever you are trying to reject as well, the OK button should be grayed out, because it expects that you should have a comment or a reason why you are rejecting. If it's approve, it's not the same. You see that the button is active, but when it's reject, then this button is grayed out. So I can just say not allowed and OK. So once I say that, then I can see that the status has been updated to manager rejected. And if I go back to my initial one, I'd see this as well. Let me just refresh this, and I'll be able to see the request from the user's end as well, to see that the request has been rejected. If I go to my request, because now it's going to be in my request and not my approvals, I'm back to my original account, and then I can see that it's the status has changed to manager rejected. And if I view this, I can also see the comment that was made by the manager. So we can also include, in addition to manager comments, we can include the time the manager also rejected, and just same thing as what we have in the manager rejected. And if I go back to my email, I'd also see that I've gotten an email to say this leave request that I submitted has been rejected by my manager. So that's it basically on what the app should look like at this point. So let me know your thoughts and comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, turn on notifications, as we are going to do more of this. So I might also have another class on this, or maybe doing a couple of other advanced stuff, but let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you, and bye for now.